Hello, everyone. I'm Emily from Artemisia Academy, and today we're going to be talking to our Intro to Case Studies teacher, Jiling, about 6 major learning lessons that every clinical herbalist goes through. So hello, Jiling. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you.
So tell me, just go through finger by finger, what are some of the major learning issues that you've had as a clinical herbalist developing your practice and coming into your own as a clinician?
I actually had a bit of trouble thinking up this list because there's been so many learning lessons along the way, and they continue to go and they continue to grow. And part of being an herbalist and part of the beauties of being in this line of work is always have something to grow into, constantly learning.
Yeah, I don't think my learning ever stopped when it comes to clinical work. And even when I feel like I've hit those plateaus of, oh, I sort of have this, another learning lesson will hit me in the face. So what have been some of your maybe like baby herbalist struggles when you're first getting into your practice and starting to really own up to you're a clinical herbalist?
So when I first started, I was just coming out of working with my teacher in a free clinic where everything was free. So when I came out and I started seeing strangers as an herbalist, I really didn't know how much to charge. And everybody said, "We'll charge what you're worth." And I didn't know how much I was worth. And so I set a really, really generous sliding scale of how much I was worth. And back when I was first starting, when it was maybe 1 to 5 at the max people a week, that was doable. And my time could be fluid and my money could be fluid. This is a part-time gig, it's all good. And now I'm seeing 20 to 30 people a week. I'm seeing a lot more people now. That's not possible. And doing sliding scale gets messy. Some people pay and are very, very generous going at the top end of the scale. And I feel like more often than not, people would try to aim high. But having that conversation over and over again with different people can get to be a drag. And particularly if you're using a different system to have people pay on, like I use the Square software to have people pay me, it's difficult to work with a sliding scale. So number 1 is money, having an honest assessment with yourself of how much you are worth and how much your time is worth, especially if you have a family or if you're juggling multiple gigs or if you're even just juggling one other full-time 40 hours a work week type gig. How do you balance all that? And how do you determine? Check out other herbalists' websites. See how much other herbalists are charging, particularly in your own demographic. And from there, you can model how much you're worth. So that's number 1.
And I like to just add on there, just because other herbalists aren't charging what might be their full worth doesn't mean you have to as well. And especially living in Southern California, that was a hard learning lesson for me of I have to have higher rates to exist in this town. And because I exist in this town, I also now have the ability, instead of doing sliding scale, I offer some discounted or free services on the side to balance that and still be able to give forward. So you guys can decide how you give back, but still make a living doing it.
I love that. I'm going to quote that. Decide how you want to give back so that you can still make a living while doing it. Quotable quotes from Emily Sanders. Yes.
There will be a webpage for that. No, there won't. All right. What's your next one going down the line? What's number 2?
Setting a time limit. So along a similar range as the first conversation with first starting out, perhaps you have more time to converse with one person at a time, especially if only seeing one person a week. But as you begin to get more busy, and maybe you're seeing 10 people a week now, 20 people a week, maybe you're working in a really crazy place and it becomes like 30 people a week, you really have to set a time limit. And I also encourage for people just starting off to be really clear with your time if you're working in a clinical setting especially with multiple people. I'll be working with you for 1 hour. And when the hour is up, thank you so much. Let's book your next appointment and have a wonderful day. maybe get paid if you are getting paid, which hopefully you are getting paid, but being really clear with that time limit, because especially when people are invited to speak about themselves, and oftentimes in our modern world, people have multiple interlocking health conditions that their primary care practitioner and conventional medicine folks will not be listening to, will not be holding them in a supportive listening space, will not be asking them more questions to continue discussing their health problems. Usually within PCP, primary care practitioner, or standard healthcare setting, it's 5-10 minutes if you're lucky. It's really fast. So when you're in that kind of setting, person oftentimes will want to keep going and go over your time limit. So clear boundaries around your time.
Yeah, I call the doctor's visits the hit and run kind of conversations. Yes. And even though we're amazing space holders, it's so important that we're holding the space, including holding the boundary. And I think that's like what we're continuing to talk about, I think, all day today here, is the boundaries that we need to hold to have a life and a practice at the same time. Yeah, love it. So what would be your next learning lesson that you've had along the way?
Next learning lesson is letting people know in a gentle but clear fashion that you, as a clinical herbalist, are not always available. That
I can't call you 24/7 about all of my herbal questions.
I am not available at 2 a.m., Emily. Sorry.
I really wanted to know if it's okay for me to take herbs with this medication, or can I combine all the herbs at once? Or do I make them all in a tea? Do I drink it all? How many days a week can I keep this tea out of the fridge? Can't I call you and ask?
I will respond to your email in 1 week.
Oh, gosh, I love that. How is that how you actually respond to your clients? That sounds awesome. Tell me about that.
Well, that's actually how Emily, that's how you respond. So if you ever email Emily, you'll see that she has an automated response to every single email that says, I will respond to you within a week. And if not, then you can contact me again. And I feel like that's really clear. I tried doing that for when I'm traveling. I definitely do that while traveling, but I don't always have my automate message on, just because it's hard. It's hard. And I do have some people who want me to check insurance for my acupuncture clinical practice, to check insurance, and that needs to be done in a more timely fashion. But then as far as setting time boundaries with text messaging, like my patients and your clients oftentimes can text message you or can reach you on the phone, I just don't respond. I just don't respond unless it's usually between 10 and 6 is when I will respond, if I respond, if it needs to be responded to.
Really love those really clear boundaries. It's so wonderful.
Yeah. And if you're emailing a person back, this is one of my secrets, is if I am responding to the email message at some ungodly hour, let's say 10 p.m., I will automate the send to send the next morning at after 8 a.m. usually, so that it seems like I'm not responding to messages that late, so that the client will get the sense that, oh, she's not up responding to my message and at my beck and call this late.
Love it. I love it. It's like setting office hours. It's such a beautiful thing.
Which is necessary for boundaries and guarding your time, because you have to be able to take care of yourself in order to respond accordingly to the world around you and to be fully present and fully helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What's your next one? Number 4.
With helping and with trying to be of service and hoping with your full heart to be of service as a clinical herbalist, oftentimes many of us have come to this work with so much rich life experiences and perhaps a load of other certifications or degrees or experience behind us. And with all this helpfulness and hopefulness, the easiest thing to do seems to give all of our suggestions all at once to these poor, suffering people that have come to us seeking support. However, that is oftentimes too much and not actionable for the patient. So one of the things that my teacher, Seven Song, used to do was to try to limit his lifestyle recommendations to 3. So give a formula and give 3 recommendations max, ideally only 1 recommendation. And honestly, I'm really struggling with this one still. Oftentimes I type up a whole thing for patients. However, at the top of the thing, I'll say, focus on ... or pick 1 to 3 and focus on what you choose. Don't try to address the whole thing. And also, if it's someone with a more complex condition now, I'll warn the patient. I'll say, I'll send you a big thing, but don't feel like you have to get through all of it. And don't feel guilty if you don't get through all of it. Please just choose 1. However, the easiest thing to do for both yourself and your clients, especially when first starting out, is to just make it easy for everybody and just pick 1 to 3 things and limit your protocol recommendations.
And that's something we practice in our case studies class, is like, just pick 3 things that you would work with them on. And it's like, but there's so many.
Yes.
They can only do 1 to 3 things at a time. Because I know I can only do 1 to 3 things at a time. Anything more, I feel like a failure. And so it's been a learning lesson, I think, for me too. And yeah, we do a lot of fun work with that in class.
Absolutely.
Okay, number 5.
So as you are going through your herbal education and as you are starting to see people as a clinical herbalist, you will accumulate a lot of information. You will accumulate a lot of books and papers, and it is so important to figure out a filing system that works for you. I still have notebooks upon notebooks that I'm slowly going through and getting rid of, sometimes scanning, sometimes simply just recycling with a really sad and slightly guilty conscience. But all these papers just get lost, and then moths and other bugs like to eat them, and it just gets messy and becomes piles, like you could see back there, some piles that I reference a little bit more often than not. So now I try to keep everything on the computer and in a digital file, just because it's automatically alphabetized. I have numbering systems that work for me, and trying to keep things simple. So simple but clear. I like to start with date and then name, but now I'm starting to experiment with name and then date if it's something that I might be searching for, with name rather than the date, and figuring out what works for you and sticking with it.
I love it. I love it. All right. What's your last one? What's your 6th one for today?
We can't fix everything.
I thought we all were superheroes and we all had these magical capes and we're Wonder Women.
We are. However, this is planet Earth, and we are limited capacity within our beautiful, shining, invisible capes. And part of wearing that cape, part of having the honor to wear that cape, is to understand that this is part of life, the perfection of imperfection, and knowing that with 30 minutes to 1 hour or 2 hours, if you're lucky, with a person with the formula that the person may or may not take, and the lifestyle strategies that the person that you're working with may or may not take, because of either their own limitations or the limitations that the world has placed upon them, don't take it personally. We can't fix it all. It's all good.
Well,
you can go to bed
love
at
that
night.
message. And I really love that, we're more facilitators than we are magic wand, fix it all healers.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just keeping it really realistic with the expectations. I love that.
Which sometimes is still a crushing message to remember, especially if the person across the table is really suffering and you're really feeling for that person, and they're such a good person and you really want to help them, but cannot fix everything.
Yeah. Well, Jiling, thank you so much for your learning lessons and sharing this with us. if anyone wants to jump in, our Intro to Case Studies course is part of our Herbal Apprentice program. It's our level 1 program, and we'll be having much more clinical work down the road in our level 2 classes as well. So if you guys want to find Jiling, you can find her and her clinical work and get sessions with her at, how do we find you?
JilingLin.com. That's JILINGLIN.com. So that's just my first and last name. All the info is on there, and also on social media, Instagram, Ling Jiling, and then Facebook, Jiling LAC, licensed acupuncturist.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jiling, and looking forward to seeing you and seeing everyone else down the road. Take care, guys.
Bye.